Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 5 of the Old Glory Games podcast. My name is Kyle, and I'm here with my partner, Greg. And this is going to be probably the second podcast you hear. We actually are recording this right after the Super Bowl. And so, that being said, Greg, since I didn't watch it, how about you kick us off with the Super Bowl? I have a couple things I want to talk about, but I'll let you kick it off.
Sure. So, as always, I'm doing well. I'm blessed and super excited to be here. So, as you mentioned, Kyle, I did watch the game last night. Unfortunately, it seemed to take a back seat to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. I know we'll get more into those things in a little while, but overall, it was a very good game. It was a competitive struggle. It wasn't a shootout. And ultimately, the game boiled down to untimely mistakes and play calling. And also, with the untimely mistakes, you got to throw in turnovers there, and that wound up being the undoing for the 49ers. Believe it or not, the referees did a great job. They were consistent. There were no roughing the passer calls, which was shocking to me. No personal foul calls on tackling except for, I think, one horse collar call that was legitimate and clear. There were no egregious pass interference calls. So the game did not boil down to a referee's call like I think the previous Super Bowl may have. So San Francisco was up like 10-0 going into the half, and Kansas City kicked a late half field goal. San Francisco could not keep Kansas City down, and that's one thing you've got to do against these guys. Once you got them down, you got to keep them down. And they did not take advantage of opportunity to score. They fumbled on the opening drive. They were driving, and McCaffrey, which is uncharacteristic for him, fumbled. And they also fumbled on a punt deep in their own territory. I think that was in the second half. The ball hit one of the 49er players in the leg, and the return man tried to pick it up instead of just fall on it.
Man.
And I'm yelling at the TV, dude, just fall on the ball. You got like 4 or 5. You've got 4 or 5 defenders around you. Fall on the ball.
Right.
So also they were victim of a blocked extra point.
I saw that.
Which to the casual viewer is not a big deal, but it was a big deal because instead of taking a 4-point lead late, they only took a 3-point lead. And of course, Kansas City only had to score a field goal to tie the game, which they did. So that bit them. And also penalties on the offensive side of the ball that stalled more than one drive. San Francisco was effective in running the ball in the first half, and they got away from that in the second half. And I'm like, come on, guys, run the football. They got cute. They ran too many gadget plays for my taste. They scored on a gadget play, which was nice, but they just got too cute with the play calling. I think they had like 3 or 4 false start penalties, which put them in either, first and long, second and long, third and long situations, which are obvious, passing situations. And they just got away from the run until very late in the game. The Chiefs on defense were getting tired, and San Francisco did not take advantage of that. And you have to do that. It's a war of attrition. Yep. And when you don't take advantage of the other team being worn down and tired, again, that's something that can bite you in the end, and it did. So, to my previous point, you can't let Kansas City hang around. Those guys have been there before. Mahomes, and I don't want to hype him too much, but he kind of reminds me of Tom Brady in that sense. He didn't get rattled. None of those guys did. They pretty much felt like, well, if we get the ball last, we're either going to tie the game or win it. And on both counts, that's what they did. Going back to what I mentioned maybe earlier, as far as the game being overshadowed, unfortunately, there was a streaker.
On the West?
Nice. And I'm like, come on. But they quickly rectified that situation. I'm glad that the networks that broadcast the game don't show those boneheads, because that's what they want attention. They just, leave the shot on the field or someplace else, not to reward them and give them what they want. So on that end, that was good. Of course, you had the Taylor Swift thing where it felt like every few minutes they showed the luxury box she was in to get her reaction or just whatever it was. And also they did a bunch of camera shots of Travis Kelce. It's like, okay, the defense is on the field. Why are you showing him? I'm like, seriously. And the funny thing was, the way they did it, they would show like a 2 or 3 second shot of those two, and the broadcasters wouldn't necessarily say anything about them. It was kind of subliminal in a way. And I'm like, I know they're doing this on purpose. There's a reason for doing this. Basically giving the folks that tune in to the game to see Taylor Swift, giving them what they want. So, I know it's all about numbers and, trying to attract all the Swifties out there to make sure they watch the game, even though they may not have been interested in the game itself. But that got to be pretty annoying, and it, to me, kind of disrupted the flow of the game. It's like Romo and Jim Nantz are talking about what's going on the field, but the camera is in the luxury box or on Travis Kelce. And I'm thinking, there's going to be a fatigue factor after a while, but, the season's over with. So hopefully moving forward, they'll dial that back significantly, or just stop showing her at all. It's like she's just one of 80,000-90,000 people, whoopee, let her enjoy the game. Quit showing her all the time. That's my opinion. But anyway, so I want to get your take on what a lot of people are talking about at the water cooler today, and that is Travis Kelce yelling at his head coach, Andy Reid, and bumping him, almost knocking him to the ground. So I'm very interested to hear your take on that.
Well, yeah, I just want to just talk about that. Definitely. Let me just pick up real quickly, tag on what you said about them not running the ball and us talking about football the last time we did our recording, about how, like you said, it's a war of attrition. And that's how you win football games. I was excited because I wasn't watching the game, but I was following the score, and I saw it was like 3-3 the first half. I was like, wow, this may be one of those kind of 2000 Super Bowls with the Ravens and the Giants, and how it's just defense, which I'm assuming it pretty much was. But it sounds like
it was.
Oh, it was. Yeah. They got away from that, and they could have won by just doing some fundamental coaching, hard-nosed football, which is the style of this podcast is all about. So if they had follow our lead, Greg, San Francisco would have won. So in terms of Andy Reid, everyone loves Andy Reid. I love Andy Reid. He's just a guy you like. And what's interesting about him is when he was the coach of the Eagles, this is a guy who would never run the ball. He would do his run game through either McNabb or through a screen pass. It was never a traditional running game. He'd pass the ball all the time. So that's kind of some irony there. But in terms of Kelce bumping into him, to me, that ruined the entire optics of the post game. of everything, because that's all you're seeing now, because he's tied in with Taylor Swift. If it wasn't that connection, there wouldn't be that sort of, I don't think, optics in the negative. I ended up watching the highlights of the game, about 20 minutes of it. I watched it on double speed to get through it quickly, and then I watched some clips from the actual bumping, and I thought it appeared to be in jest, but at the same time, you can't get around those optics. He bumped him. He physically hit him. And what would have happened had Andy Reid fallen down and hurt himself? So, and I think another player said something like, I'm sure who said this, I think it was the receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, said, if that had happened to me, I would have been kicked out of the league. So, number one, I think Kelce looks bad. I think it takes away from the overall story of the game and then winning the third Super Bowl and all that. And thirdly, it just ties into the whole thing with Taylor Swift, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and Kelce, and how that kind of backfired against them, right? Because they were showing them all the time. You get that producer on that camera, even though Tony Romo was talking about something different, I'm assuming, but they're going to show Kelce anyway because that's what people want. And then they catch that quote unquote hot mic moment, and it looks bad.
I agree. And I think at times they were talking more about Kelce than they were about Mahomes. I realized that Kelce is, I mean, seriously, Mahomes, I get it. He's the top receiver on.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
On their team. I get it. But at one point, he only had like one catch. So they stifled him very well in the beginning, but it felt forced that, yeah, we got to talk about him. We got to show him. We got to show her. But going back to the bump, you know as well as I do, the optics are very bad, whether it was in jest or not. It looked pretty heated to me.
Yeah.
The body language suggested that Kelce was very angry. He was yelling at his coach, and he almost knocked him to the ground. Now, what if Andy Reid had gotten hurt?
Twist his knee or something, yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's a big guy, and easily have it happen.
Oh, yeah. He's an old guy, too. So, you know, that certainly could have happened. And you know as well as I do, kids are watching.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Kids emulate what they see from these star athletes. It's bad enough today as it is with these young players being disrespectful to their coaches, disrespectful to the referees, disrespectful to authority figures in general. So this is a very bad look on many levels. And, you know, if I had done that to my head coach, he would have immediately sent me to the locker room, hit the showers, get your clothes on, and get lost. I probably would have been kicked off the team. I mean, that's just something you don't do. You know, I recall a situation back when I played semi-pro ball, when a guy put his hands on a coach, and the players strongly intervened and say, hey, we're not having that. There needs to be a consequence here. So we as players squash that and let that guy know, yeah, that's not happening here. You don't put your hands on a coach under any circumstances.
Correct.
And I feel like, and I don't know what happened in the locker room. I have no clue, so I won't even speculate. But to me, as a team, those players should have just jumped in and said, hey, man, you need to cool it. This can't happen. I get it. It's the Super Bowl, and Andy Reid's not going to tell Travis Kelce to go hit the showers. But I think at the very least, he could have said, hey, you're out for the rest of the quarter, or just something like that to let him know, yeah, I'm not going to put up with that. Now, Andy Reid indicated that, you know, it's fine. They're all good. He's just an intense guy.
Yep.
That's just making excuses as far as I'm concerned. As a coach, you got to let these guys know there's got to be a level of separation. I'm the coach. Yep. You're the player. Yep. I'm the boss.
Yep.
You need to respect that. But it just reeks of ego and a lack of respect and entitlement. And, we see it every day, unfortunately. But yeah, that was a very, that looked very bad.
Imagine.
Very bad look. And to me, if Kelce has any sort of class, whether it was in jest or not, and I really don't think it was, I saw it real time and I'm like,
oh, wow,
what in the world? He was very, very angry. And what he was angry about puzzled me because the play resulted in a fumble. What could he have done to prevent that fumble besides nothing? I mean, him being on the bench as opposed to him being on the field during that play wouldn't have mattered one bit, in my opinion. So what are you getting all upset about? This is a team game. I get it. You're intense. I mean, I'm intense, but I never would have done anything like that. And the majority of players, even today, wouldn't have done anything like that. So to me, if Travis Kelce has any sort of class, he would, get in front of some reporters or something and basically say, well, I got emotional. I got excited. I bumped my coach. I should never do that. I sincerely apologize. I don't want, any kids that look up to me or watch me. I don't want them to do what I did. I made a bad mistake. I'm sorry. I apologize to Andy Reid. I apologize to my team. I apologize to our fans. That's something as a leader.
Yep.
And that's another thing. You're one of the leaders on that football team. You cannot do something like that. As a leader of this team, I apologize to my team. That's what he should do. Will he do it? I doubt it.
No, he won't.
But I doubt it, but that's what he should do. But yeah, that was very bad.
Can you imagine him doing that to a Chuck Noll, Bud Grant, Tom Landry, a Madden, or in this case, a Hank Stram? Could you imagine if that happened to any one of those guys?
No, because one of the other players would have corrected him swiftly.
Yep.
If not, the coach would basically say, yeah, go home. I mean, to me, it would have been immediate. If any of those old school coaches, and it's hard for me to even imagine a scenario like that. Now, did those players get heated and excited and uptight? They sure did. But you could never picture somebody getting in Tom Landry's face and bumping him. I mean, you just couldn't see it. I feel like if somebody went rogue like that, one or multiple players would have, snatched.
Utah Jones would have just strangled him.
Oh yeah, it's like I said before. I think the players would have intervened swiftly and decisively, and basically said, "Dude, get out of here before we get on you," kind of thing. It's a different day, but you couldn't imagine anything like that, happening then as opposed to now. But regardless, Kelce needs to show some kind of decorum and class and apologize.
Yeah.
Again, I doubt he does, but that's what he should do.
And that's going to blow back on his girlfriend too. I wonder how that's, I'm not sure how if she cares about it, whatever, but she gets a lot of heat anyway from people who just don't like her and who don't want her as part of this. And I'm going to talk about her in a little bit. In fact, we'll segue that in a second, but I'm sure she's going to get some heat from this. And for him to apologize may even make her look even worse because they're kind of going with the actual meanness and pride that he showed and the unsportsmanlike conduct. So they maybe just want to brush it under the rug and not talk about it. But if he were to apologize, it would bring more light to that and maybe blow back on her a little bit more. But in terms of Taylor Swift, and I'll get to my last topic of why I didn't watch the game. The main reason why I didn't watch the game was because of the Black National Anthem, but we'll get to that in a second. And since we're on the topic of Taylor Swift and her boyfriend, and I'm going to kind of go against myself and actually look back at this and say, you know what? good on the NFL for bringing her in there, because I heard someone say this and I didn't think much of it, but they were basically saying when you have the 5 networks, Fox, NBC, CBS, I guess it's 4 really, but whatever. When you have these big networks where they're trying to vie for advertising dollars, and the Super Bowl is obviously, it has been for a long time, the most heavily advertised single event every year. Okay. And so with that, advertisers, let's say Acme's pub shop wants to buy a spot in Super Bowl at some point in time. Well, it's going to cost them X number of dollars to do it. And they're thinking, you know what, well, why do I do that when I could go off somewhere else who is where people actually are? In other words, most people nowadays aren't consuming their products on network television. They're consuming their products on YouTube. They're consuming their products on other media outlets that's not part of the big 4 media broadcasters. So the whole paradigm has changed. And so I had the segment here is talking about what does Mr. Beast have to do with Taylor Swift? Well, Mr. Beast has hundreds of millions of subscribers, a lot. And one ad on a Mr. Beast video would get you more views than an ad on the Super Bowl. And so the NFL, really what they're trying to do is they're trying to hold on to that earned medium that Taylor Swift gives them. They don't pay a dime on that. The fact that she is part of the inner circle of the Kelce thing, and she's in there with the playoffs, in the press box, they have a camera honed on her, trained on her the entire time. That's earned media that they don't pay a dime for. So that's why they're doing it. And like you said before, the Swifties, whoever they are, that is what they're getting their revenue from, because people are going to be watching this on ESPN. But for instance, when I watched it on ESPN, the highlights, the first thing I saw after the touchdown at the end, spoiler alert for those who didn't see it, Kansas City won. They went direct. I believe they went to the press box, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't know, because they were grabbing and hugging. I'm assuming that was Taylor Swift, and so the NFL knows exactly what they're doing. Hey guys, let's do this. So, in some ways, I can't really hate on them. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I absolutely get what you're saying, and I get why they're doing it. I mean, they want as many eyeballs on the broadcast as possible for multiple reasons. So I didn't particularly care for them doing it, but I certainly understand why they did it. They're going to ride that train as long as possible until they break up and she quits going to the game. I mean,
which would be in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, and then she'll write a song about
exactly.
it. Right?
Poor Kelce. Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you watch the beginning of it? Did you watch any of the national anthems? Because there's some pushback on, well, a couple of things. They did the Black National Anthem, and I heard a rumor that they were going to do another anthem as well. Can you talk to that? Because that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to watch it. And I saw another clip of a Democrat, I guess, on Twitter who was complaining that people weren't standing for the so-called Black National Anthem.
Okay, so I'll speak to that. I did not see it. I refuse to see it. That's not something that I want to see. In my opinion, there's one national anthem. It's the Star Spangled Banner. There was a logo in the end zone that read, "End racism." Okay, so out of one side of your mouth, you say that, right, and on the other side of your mouth,
right,
you've got somebody singing the Black National Anthem, which I believe used to be called the Negro National Anthem. But I digress. To me, the national anthem is about unity. It's about everybody being under the same flag, under the same umbrella, one nation under God. Having a Black national anthem wipes out all of that. What how much more divisive can you be by having a Black national anthem and then having the national anthem? In my mind, and I did see some things online where people were leaving, I guess, to go to concession stand, or they were clapping, or they were standing, whatever it was. Yeah, and people just did not. And I know there were a lot of people that does not like that, or doesn't like the idea of having a Black national anthem. I do not like the idea of having a Black national anthem. Now, I understand where it comes from. Back during the time when there was segregation and real racism and Black people being truly oppressed and not being given the rights that they're supposed to have under the law and under the Constitution, I get it as far as having something like that back then. But this is 2024. There is one national anthem, period. And to me, having a Black national anthem is nothing but pandering on the highest level.
Absolutely.
I don't know of any Black organization or group that went to the NFL and said, hey, if you don't play the Black national anthem before the national anthem, we're going to protest. We're not going to go to the game. We're going to raise a stink. I believe this was something, and I think this started after the George Floyd, that whole thing with his death and the subsequent events after that. I think they started it after that. But to continue to do it 4 years later, they shouldn't have done it to begin with. But to me, this sets a very bad precedence. But it's not necessary. If they came out tomorrow and said, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore. You know, we're going to play the national anthem. We're one nation under God. We don't want to be divisive. You know, sports should be unifying, but you're going to start right off the bat with something as divisive as the Black national anthem. Now, the song itself, I don't have an issue with, but presenting it as the Black national anthem, you're separating yourselves from everybody else, yet you want everybody else to treat you equally. That idea is conflicting, in my opinion. But if the NFL came out tomorrow, or they wouldn't even have to say anything, just stop doing it. I mean, there might be a few people that might have a fit, but that would go away. I can't think of anybody that would stop watching the game or going to the game because they're not doing the Black national anthem anymore. So yeah, it's just pandering at the highest level for the NFL to do that. It's like, there's no need to do that. All you're doing is presenting a point of contention when it doesn't need to be there. So I'm hoping at some point they stop doing it, but I refuse to watch that. You know, to me, it's not patriotic. To me, at this point, it's divisive. And if you're saying end racism, but you're promoting that, I mean, that's conflicting on many levels. But yeah, I didn't watch it, and I refuse to watch that. I didn't even know that Reba McEntire sang the national anthem until I think sometime after the game was right. No clue.
Yeah.
Because everybody was busy talking about the Black national anthem and Taylor Swift and this and that and the other thing. No idea that Reba sang the national anthem, and she did a fantastic job. And to me, we ought to be coming together under something like that, as opposed to arguing and fussing over the Black national anthem. I'm like, come on, y'all. There's one national anthem. Because, and I think you'll agree, what is going to stop some other group saying, hey, we want our own national anthem too?
Yeah. national botanist.
It's a slippery slope, I think. Yeah. So
Here's how we stop them from doing it. We just tell the truth about it. It was written by a guy named James Weldon Johnson, and it's set to music by J. Rosamond Johnson. It was written in the context of African Americans in the 18th century as a hymn and a prayer of thanksgiving to God, of the Bible, by the way, and a prayer for faithfulness, freedom, imagery invoking the biblical exodus from slavery to freedom to the promised land. And it goes into James Weldon Johnson also wanting to commemorate Abraham Lincoln as well, who was a Republican, and all these different things. So in its context, it was an anthem of the movement. It was never a Black national anthem. It just became that because they want to shift the narrative, just like they want to do with Juneteenth, where they want to say, well, yeah, it's just white man didn't want to do nothing for nobody. But the fact of the matter was, it was a Republican president getting the people or the army, the Republicans to come in there to actually announce that they were free. And the context is actually pro-America, abolitionist, anti-democrat, anti-Marxist, people who are against individual liberties and freedoms. And if you context it that way, and if Trump comes out and says, hey, let's sing the Black national anthem, and everyone who's conservative embrace it in that context, they would stop it tomorrow. They would stop it tomorrow because they don't want the context of what it means. They want the divisive nature of it, the Marxist divisive, them versus us, bureaucrats versus the workers narrative. That's what they care about. They don't care about the origins of it or what it truly means in the context of America.
Yeah, it's something that, it's a very contentious topic, and it doesn't need to be. The so-called Black national anthem has no place in being performed before sporting events. I mean, but I get it, and I get why the NFL is doing it. Again, they're trying to appease Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't need to appease Black people in that manner.
Hot sauce.
And at the same time, offending a bunch of other people.
Exactly.
Black people are going to watch the games whether they do that or not. Black people are going to buy gear whether they do that or not. Black people are going to attend the games whether they do that or not. So what are you doing that for? You're already on so many other levels showing league support for Black initiatives, Black causes. We saw that after George Floyd, how they went out of their way to say, hey, we support this, we support that. Let that be that. The NFL does plenty for Black people, including employing, what's the percentage of Blacks in the NFL?
60%.
It's up there.
Somewhere in there.
It's up there.
60, 70, something.
So they're already doing plenty for the Black community. You don't have to force the Black national anthem down everybody's throat. It's not necessary, and it's not the national anthem.
And here's the thing.
I mean, the song is perfectly fine, but it's not the national anthem. There's one.
And you raised a good point there, Greg, and I don't want to be a dead horse on this, but the so-called Black national anthem is counterproductive to what the national anthem is supposed to be about. National anthem is not necessarily about patriotism. What it's really about is a pragmatic attempt for the venue to get people to come together over one issue to buy popcorn, beer, soda, popcorn, and all that, and to come together at some point so they can sell concessions and have a point where we can agree before we go to war with each other once the kickoff starts. And so that's kind of what it is. But then to your point, which, like I said, is counter to that. The Black National Anthem doesn't do that. It actually counters that. It takes that and it says, okay, well, for the point of what I just said about union, unity, concessions, beer, popcorn, let's get together, kumbaya, before we kick off and fight. We're already fighting before the kickoff. So it's like, I think they're going to find in the long term, they're going to find that's going to hurt them when they go back and look at the metrics, they analyze the data. They're going to realize that people are tuning out because this is another woke measure. Anything that goes woke always goes broke. There's no sustainability in the woke agenda, no matter what. And they will come to that conclusion at some point in time. Some brilliant accountant would say, "Hey guys, you know what? When we did the national anthem prior without the national anthem, we made this much money. But ever since after that, we weren't making as much money." They'll figure it out eventually.
I hope so. But, one of the downsides of that, it just took away from the game. Not just that, but all the other things that were going on took attention away from the reason we were all tuning in the first place, the actual game. And the actual game was pretty good. And I think it was only the second Super Bowl that went into overtime, if I'm not mistaken. So
and almost with that
does not happen every day.
Almost with the whole term too. The touchdown came was like less than a minute.
Yes, I mean plenty of drama. You've got two teams that are fairly evenly matched. It was a competitive struggle. It was something that I enjoyed watching. And to have that be the second or third topic of discussion today is a shame, but that's where we are, unfortunately. So I'm hoping moving forward that all the other miscellaneous sideshow type things are removed and we can get back to focusing on the game, enjoying the game. And then the next day, let's talk about the game, not some player pushing his coach, not,
right.
Not about Taylor Swift flying from Tokyo just to catch the game and not any of that other stuff.
Heard that.
Let's talk about what goes on the field.
100%. And by the way, 50% as of 2021 of people are black in the NFL. I figured it was 60 to 65, somewhere in there. So, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, it takes away from Mahomes because that guy, I mean, he's on his way, man. That guy, he's on his way. Maybe we'll talk about him at some point. We're going to do another video or actually podcast. I'm sorry. This is a video podcast, but we're going to talk about is the NFL soft and how soft is it and why is it soft and that sort of thing. So, but that's coming up in another episode. So, I think we've kind of hit this pretty well, and we're going to end this podcast right here. Is anything you want to say before we close the podcast, Greg?
I would just say that, to your point, Patrick Mahomes deserves a ton of credit. He wasn't necessarily playing well in the beginning of the game, but again, he's super confident in his team and his coaches and in himself. And I don't want to hype him too much because it's still a little early to say he's the next Tom Brady, but to me, he's well on his way as far as his ability, his awareness, his toughness, and his desire to want the ball in his hands when the game is on the line. When they went forward, I think it's like 4th and 2, 4th and 3.
I saw that.
And the game was on the line, and he basically rolled out and kept it himself and ran it for a first down. I mean, that's what great players are made of. So, unfortunately, we're not talking about Mahomes as much as we should be today. But hey, let's not forget he played a fantastic game, and he's had a fantastic career so far, and the sky's the limit for him. So congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs, and the off season starts like now, right? So yeah, more to come on that, but yeah, congratulations to them. And I think he can ride his own ticket as far as his place in NFL history.
I guess I should support the Chiefs because that's a good way to maybe get the name the Redskins back. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I refuse to call them the Commanders. I'm like, come on.
So, okay, guys. So thank you so much, Greg. I think this is our best one so far. It's our 5th one. This is episode 5 of the Old Glory Games podcast. Greg, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for hanging out with us. You can check us out at podcast.theconservativetake.com. We're on Spotify, Google, YouTube, and we may go other places too. But for now, that's where we're going to be. Oh, and Apple, of course. All right, everybody. Until next time, we'll see you then.